Good day everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's Londononion here with another Back 4 Blood character build. And the character we'll be building in this video is Hoffman. Now generally I would say cleaners fall on a spectrum of roles/categories ranging from offensive, supportive, and defensive, and of course the degrees in between as we will uncover throughout the series. Just for consistency, I will define offensive roles and perks as abilities that are directly intended to increase damage or bolster offensive capabilities. Defensive roles and perks will be defined as abilities that directly increase survivability from punishment. Lastly, supportive roles and perks are defined as alternative skills that can be instrumentally used for offensive or defensive purposes without a defined intention for either polarization, but they are ultimately a helpful perk for one's team. First, we will have a brief overview of our chosen cleaner, go through relevant cards that will either synergize or compensate with their attributes, and conclude with what I consider to be the main tactics to maximize the use of their abilities as well as my closing statements. Now, for those who are present during our weapon reviews and deck builds, each weapon-centered deck build came with character designations. Our format with character builds will be similar, but with more priority to a given character and maximizing their role on a given team. So starting off with the character attributes of Hoffman. Hoffman has an undefined chance to find ammo or an offensive throwable when he kills a Ridden. He comes with an extra offensive inventory slot, and he has a team effect of an additional 15% ammo capacity. Now in regards to our spectrum, it is the attributes that we will use to designate each cleaner. In Hoffman's case, I would consider his chance of finding ammo or an offensive accessory to be split between offensive and supportive classification. His increased offensive inventory I will classify as an offensive perk, and his increased team ammo capacity to be a supportive perk. With all that said, I would categorize Hoffman to be directly in the middle of our offensive and supportive roles. For simplicity, however, I will categorize Hoffman as more of a supportive offensive cleaner, as his offensive perks are limited to secondary items as opposed to one's firearms. Now in regards to our card selection, we can compensate with the more defensive cards, and we can synergize with more related and compounding cards depending on needs. And naturally, there is the option of creating a mixture or specialization. But if you ask me, a quintessential cleaner is not one that is good at everything, but one that fulfills their role in the best manner to aid the overall effectiveness of their team. So starting ourselves off with his deck build, it is important to state that our selections will have a twofold orientation that synergize with his perks. Additionally, just like our weapon-centered builds, I prefer to use my own designations for cards as opposed to what Back 4 Blood has them labeled as. Now, unlike all other cleaners we have covered thus far, Hoffman's character makeup is purely geared toward offensive contingency. In a way, he is similar to Mom and Doc, but instead of maintaining his team's vitality, he maintains their offensive capabilities, including his own. Hoffman's mindset would likely be to be prepared for any threat and have a backup plan in the event preparation fails. Even his outfits seem to reflect this. With that said, he does not have any directly defensive perks. In regards to his ideal weapon of choice, similar to Doc, I would say LMGs would be a good fit. But really, I would say Hoffman is one of those versatile cleaners who can make any weapon work, some more than others. But this will be covered in more detail later in our discussion. Moving on to our card selections, our first card will be Grenade Pouch, which provides an extra offensive inventory slot and increases swap speed by 25%. Next, I employ Bomb Squad, and this card allows an additional frag grenade to spawn in each map and comes with two team effects: 25% increased team explosive damage and 20% team explosive resistance. Next, Grenade Training increases accessory damage by 25%. Pyro increases fire damage by 100%, and kills with fire grant 3 temporary health, and flammable objects can be more easily sensed. Carrying on, Improvised Explosives increases accessory damage by 75%, but reduces swap speed by 25%. Next, Ammo Belt increases ammo capacity by 50% and reload speed by 15%. Offensive Scavenger increases the spawn rate of offensive throwables. Meatgrinder grants 30% move speed and accuracy while crouched and using an LMG. Following, I employ Down in Front, which eliminates friendly fire both given and received while crouched, and comes with a 10-unit increase in health. Tactical Vest increases rifle ammo capacity by 30% and increases damage with assault rifles and LMGs by 10%. Hunker Down increases damage resistance by 10% and accuracy by 40%. Cold Brew Coffee increases reload speed by 15%, aim speed by 25%, weapon swap speed by 25%, and use speed by 25%. Fire in the Hole grants 20 temporary health and increased sprint speed by 25% for 5 seconds. 2 is 1 and 1 is none allows one to carry 2 primary weapons but reduces swap speed by 25%. And lastly, Ammo Scavenger increases the spawn rate of ammo. Overall, in regards to Hoffman's enhanced offensive accessories, explosives increase in damage by 125%. Incendiaries should increase in damage by a grand total of 175%. However, this is based off of Improvised Explosives, which specifies accessory damage, which is hopefully not an oversight on Molotovs and gas cans. Moving on, his reload speed will increase by a grand total of 30%. Additional ammo capacity will increase by an additional 95% with rifle ammo and 65% with all other ammo types. Lastly, his accuracy will increase by an additional 70% with LMG use, otherwise 40% for other weapons. Now, this build naturally goes in favor of using an LMG. Deviating from this weapon selection will naturally demand alternative cards. However, an ammo and accessory heavy cleaner may benefit more from a higher demanding weapon, so I designate Hoffman for use of LMGs with any choice of secondary. Now, as stated before, Hoffman is a cleaner of contingency or preparedness for whatever his circumstances may demand. He just mainly goes about this with a more offensive orientation, and his deck build, in conjunction with his base perks, reflect this. Hence, I did not consider it necessary to create a more one-dimensional build with explosives on steroids or having superfluous amounts of ammo in lieu of other cards. But anyways, with all of these skills in mind, I would argue that Hoffman is a rather versatile cleaner and can fit in virtually any role aside from Alpha. However, if there is already a team healer, then I would limit him to either Major or Omega. For those who were present during our discussion on Holly's build, the Major is pretty much an Alpha's sidekick or backup, focusing on directions the Alpha is not and periodically taking point where necessary. Hoffman could fit this role as his first unique perk incentivizes being offensively active for creating random ammo and offensive accessory drops. Not to mention, Hoffman is the contingency cleaner, so even in a leadership role, he is rather capable of defending himself with either rounds or throwables more than most other cleaners. However, I would typically advise against having an ammo-heavy leader. The alternative role is the Omega, which is rear team protection, and their focus is mostly lateral and of course backwards. The Omega is a given cleaner team's anchor. They either grind an imminent threat to a halt from whatever direction, or stand as substitute, or even the last remaining stone where others have crumbled. Because of his offensive versatility, Hoffman can be the difference between a halted threat and a fallen cleaner team. Use of fire, for example, with his selected cards will provide an automatic 20 temporary health units, typically provide area denial, and grant 3 temporary health for every additional kill. Increased explosive damage and explosive resistance will severely damage, if not kill, all mutation variants with a single throw. His heavy ammo load should be able to withstand massive hordes. Mix this with 2 primaries and he will be a difficult cleaner to overcome if equipped properly. As a man of contingency, metaphorically speaking, Hoffman can be likened to Neville from the movie, and I guess the novel, I Am Legend, Samus Aran from the Metroid Prime saga, or Iron Man from the MCU Infinity Saga. So in regards to our roles, either Major or Omega is fitting for Hoffman, though I would argue he is best placed as an Omega. Now everything in this discussion can be taken with a grain of salt, as deck build combinations are too complex for me to fairly evaluate them. However, this is the build I prefer to use when playing on the Nightmare and No Hope difficulty with Hoffman. Now it is paramount to state that team maturity is ultimately what makes any deck work. And for those who are present during our last cleaner discussion, I'm using maturity as an umbrella term to describe each individual's general understanding of roles, navigation, character and weapon attributes, ridden/mutation deterrent tactics, resource management, and ultimately collaboration, as this is a team-based game. I would also argue that the greater one's team maturity is, the greater efficacy specializations, like the one we just went through, will have, as each person will have a greater understanding of what it means to operate as a unit without being overbearing or breaking roles. Carrying on, less maturity will likely demand more of a compensating build so as to provide support where there are more deficiencies. However, there is far more to compensate with than there is to specialize with, and would create an unnecessarily long discussion. Now, Hoffman is only one piece of this giant cleaner pie, but this brings us to the end of our discussion today. Thank you guys for joining me on this one, and in our next video, the cleaner of discussion will be Jim, and we will determine where he sits on our spectrum of roles. It's been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.